Hello everyone, this is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This episode is Astral Guide School number 4, and it involves personal forgiveness. I had recorded this previously, and in the background my neighbor was mowing his lawn unexpectedly because it was kind of late. And I didn't hear it in my noise cancellation headphones, so we have to start with forgiving him for that. Before we get started on the episode, I want to thank Rod Bland, who is a new Astral Ascended member and supporter of Astral Club on Patreon. And anyone who wants to support us on Patreon, just go to the description, and there is a link there. Astral Club members get to get the videos early on Tuesday rather than waiting until Saturday, and they also have a direct email contact with me, and I can answer your questions and give you helpful hints. Okay, let's get started. Now, this episode wasn't supposed to be Astral Guide School number 4. It was supposed to be all about a lunar base, because I had started projecting, and as I projected, I was looking at the moon. I wasn't shooting for a particular time this time. I was trying to project to a point where there might be a moon base. So I went forward, constantly looking at the moon. And all of a sudden, I saw a fairly substantial base there. And it was located near some large craters. And so I was hurtling at it, going at an unbelievable speed, and I was about halfway to the moon when I was suddenly jerked away. And my first thought was, wow, I guess I got called back to my body early. What a shame. But instead, a second later, I materialized in front of my Astral Guide School teacher. This time, there was no one else. It was just he and I. And I said, whoa, I was a little taken back, a little in shock, wasn't really expecting that. And I said, hey, what can I do for you? And he said, well, I noticed that during the first lesson of Astral Guide School, you had some problems with that German soldier and the whole principle of forgiveness. And I thought that you might benefit from a more personalized lesson. I said, well, okay, I'm here now, but I don't have any relationships with Nazis. No Nazi has ever done me any harm, so I don't know what you're going to do. He said with a little bit of a laugh, no, this is going to be individually targeted to your life. The people who have harmed you in your life who have passed on. And you'll have a chance to interact with them. They have been notified that you would be arriving. So this will be your opportunity to confront them and to see if forgiveness is something that you can offer to these people. I was a little intrigued by this, so I said, okay, let's do it. I was unconscious for a second, and I found myself outside of an astral classroom. These classrooms take place with what I call zombie participants. Most of the participants are out of their bodies, but they're in an unconscious state. The hope is that when you instruct them on these variety of topics, that when they wake up, they retain some of it. And it's interesting. We've seen scientists, philosophers, and a wide variety of other very talented people wake up in the morning with these sudden ideas, these innovative solutions to problems that suddenly, seemingly, come out of nowhere. So perhaps they were, zombie participants in these astral schools. As I was looking through the door, a man turned to face me, and he smiled, and he started getting up and walking out. Now, I could see that he was not alive. He had passed, and he was conscious, unlike the unconscious participants in the classroom that were still had bodies. I could see they still had bodies. He came out and said, "Hi, Rick," and immediately I recognized him, even though I hadn't seen him since 1985. I said, "Hi, Jerry." We'll call him Jerry M. And I said, it's nice to see you. I was sorry when I read 5 years ago that you had had a sudden heart attack, and that you left behind two daughters, two young daughters, and a wife." And he said, "Yeah, that was unfortunate. I wasn't expecting that." I said, "Well, I mean, it's good to see you, but I'm a little confused. We got along pretty well. I don't think that I have to forgive you for anything." He said, "Well, there is something that I need to confess to you." He said, "Remember when you were transferred to that other location, the less desirable location that nobody wanted to go to? I had talked with the boss and I had talked him into transferring you, because I wanted to be number one in this location. And I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I was jealous and it was petty of me, and I'm very sorry." I was a little shocked. I mean, I hadn't thought about this in a long time, but it never occurred to me that it was as a result of Jerry trying to undercut me. I thought it was the boss who had some problems with me. So I said, "Look, Jerry," after thinking about it for just a few seconds, um, you know, by going to that location, yes, it was undesirable. I didn't like it there, and it forced me to start looking for a better position. And it set me on a path that eventually led me to meet my wife, get married, and have a wonderful daughter, and I love my family. So you know what? I forgive you. I mean, if you need my forgiveness, you've got it, because it all worked out in the end anyway. And he said, "Well, thank you. I really appreciate that, Rick." And I said, "Look, is there anything I can do for you? Because, I still have a body on Earth." And he said, "Yeah, I heard you were one of those astral projector guys. So, I mean, that's pretty neat. You never said anything when you were at the location." I said, "Yeah, I was kind of undercover at that point." He said, "Yeah, could you do me a favor and check on my wife and daughters and just let me know how they're doing?" I said, "Sure." I said, "I can do some checking online, and maybe, I mean, I won't talk to him about this, but I said, maybe I'll just reference that, oh, I knew your father, your husband, and I just wanted to say how sorry I am, kind of thing. And I'll just kind of see what I can find out about how they're doing. And as soon as I can, I'll come back and talk with you, because now I have your ident, so I should be able to get back to you and let you know what's going on." And he was very grateful. So that was pretty easy. I was like, "Okay, that was a pretty easy one." So I fainted again. Was out of consciousness for a second, and this time I appeared in a rundown artist studio. I mean, imagine a crappy loft somewhere in a bad section of New York City. And there was an artist there, working on some art, some works, some paintings, and they seemed, there's a lot of blacks and a lot of grays, and it was good, but it seemed like it was a little depressing. And so I turned to address, the painter, and as he turned, I recognized him, even though I hadn't seen him since middle school, which was back in 1976. And I recognized him as Chris R. And I said, "Oh, Chris, how are you?" He said, "Well, I'm okay. I'm here, and I'm trying to do some art. And they told me you would come, and that we would talk." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm here, and I'm trying to explore and do some lessons here on the astral plane." He said, "Yeah. They told me that you still had a body, and that seems kind of neat." But I said, "Chris, I wanted to say to you, because all this was coming back to me now, that when we were in elementary school, why were you and your friend John always picking on me?" Now, Chris was my size, but John was one of those kids, who was like 5'10" in elementary school, and they were always together. So trying to deal with being bullied by these two guys together was tough. I was just an average kid. And you have to remember that back in the 60s and into the 70s, bullying wasn't a topic. You didn't even think about telling your teachers or even your parents because the understanding was that, hey, let the kids settle it on the playground. So it was, you never even thought about getting adults involved, and they wouldn't have wanted to be involved in the first place. It's not like today. So, these two guys would give me a hard time on the playground, especially in, I think, fourth grade for some reason. And, it definitely was a pain day in and day out having to deal with this. And the fact that the both of them were on me, it made it difficult for me to defend myself. So I said, listen, Chris, we had some problems in elementary school, and I hear that you died in San Francisco. He said, yeah, I died from that disease, AIDS. I said, yeah, I heard, that you died sometime in the late 80s from it. And I'm sorry about that. I know you were young. He said, yeah. He said, you know what, Rick? I was tortured, even as a kid in elementary school. You know that small town we grew up in. I knew I was different, and I was ashamed. I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't even tell my friend John. And, picking on you, it made me feel powerful. It made me feel normal. And I'm sorry. It was wrong. And I would wish that you could forgive me for that. I said, listen, Chris, I understand. Yeah, it was unpleasant, but now, finding out what was going on inside you, I can't comprehend anywhere near fully what it must have been like for you. Growing up in our small town back in the 60s and 70s, it just wasn't a thing. You couldn't come out and admit you were gay. You'd have been bullied unmercifully. And it was a shameful thing back then. So, I understand. And I know you had a hard time in middle school. When I would see him in middle school, when I would see Chris, he'd always be wearing these rumpled army jackets, and he would be high and on drugs, and it seemed like he had just given up. And, I felt bad when I saw him at that point in time. And I said, look, Chris, I think I kind of forgave you a long time ago. And especially when I heard how you died in San Francisco so young, as far as I'm concerned, anything we had between us is water under the bridge. So, I forgive you. I said, listen, I might be able to help you here. Do you like this place? Do you like this studio? He said, no, it's very depressing here. I said, Chris, how do you feel about yourself? He goes, Rick, when I died, I felt shame. My parents were shunning me. The only friends I had were in San Francisco. And I think I still feel guilt and shame even to this day. I said, Chris, I think I can help you. And we sat down together and started meditating. And I said, Chris, I want you to forgive yourself. Okay? There's nothing wrong with you. Forgive yourself and embrace positivity. You deserve, better than this. And believe that. I'm telling you, you do. And you do. So as we were meditating on this, the artist's studio, this rundown loft, started disappearing, fading away. And in its place was this bright white, gold and silver modern artist studio. And there was this enormous picture window with beautiful mountains, snow-capped forests, a lovely, lovely blue lake, and wild animals. And Chris just was so happy And he was so grateful. And he said, "Thank you, Rick. Thank you so much." So I said, "Hey, I'm glad I could help you. And be well, Chris. Be well." With that, I faded away once again. That one was a little bit harder than the first one, certainly, but I felt good about it. Now, the next one up was a little strange. I found myself in a part of the lower astral, and it seemed like kind of a fixer-up shop. And there was a guy about my age hunched over a workman's table with all kinds of shelves in the background filled with all kinds of different parts and what have you. And he was working away. And as I entered the shop, he just kind of looked up and then he looked back down again at his work. And as he looked up, it came to me who he was. He was Mike H. This was a guy who would devil me when I was in middle school. I was a paper boy, and I had to go to this ice cream store every day to pick up my papers. And there'd be two other guys there, him and this other guy who would also get their papers there. And I don't know what it is, what kind of karma I've got with bullies coming in twos. But these two guys would hide my papers, and if I got into a pushing match with one of them, the other one would get me from the back, or he'd be taking my papers away while I was occupied with the other guy. So, it was very unpleasant. If I had to get there early, I'd worry about not being able to find my papers. Sometimes I was late delivering the papers because it took you a while to find them because they'd hide them. Now, if I could get there before them, or if I got there and there was just one of them, I never had a problem. But if I got there and there was two of them there, I knew I was going to have a problem. So, yeah, I wanted to talk with Mike about this. So I said, "Hey, Mike, think we need to talk." He looked up at me, said, "Yeah, they told me you were coming. I told them not to waste their time, but they said you'd be coming anyway." I thought, oh, great. I said, "Listen, Mike, you guys played a lot of cruel tricks on me. You made my life a little difficult when it didn't need to be. Okay? Playing all those games with my newspapers. I just wanted to get there, get my job done, and then be able to have some free time at home. And you guys just made my life, difficult, giving me, bullying me with you and that other guy. So, do you have anything you want to say to me about that or anything?" Now, keep in mind that I had read 2 years ago that he had passed, and that he had owned a plumbing supply shop. Now, when I heard that Jerry passed, I was sad. When I heard that Chris passed in the late 80s, I felt really bad for him because he was a young guy. Yeah, we'd had some problems, but geez, dying of AIDS in the late 80s, nobody deserved that. So I felt bad for him. I'll be honest, when I heard this guy passed a couple years ago, I could have cared less. And I said, "Are you sorry for what you did to me at all?" Looking annoyed at me, he put down the work that he was playing with. He said, "Look, we were just having some fun, just playing around. If you didn't have a sense of humor, that's not my problem. You shouldn't have been such a wuss. We were just having a little bit of fun." I said, "Okay then. I can't forgive you because it's obviously something that you're not interested in." He said, "Oh, that's fine with me." So I said, "Okay, I think we're done here. Goodbye. Have a nice afterlife." And I was starting to fade away when he goes, "Wait, wait, wait." So I stopped. I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You still have a body, right, on Earth?" I said, "Yeah." He said, can you do something for me?" I started laughing. I said, "You got to have some big dangling ones to ask a favor from me." But then I thought a couple of seconds. I figured he probably You know, I knew he had a wife. I knew he had a couple of kids. So I figured he's probably going to ask about them. So, you know, just because their father or their husband was an a-hole doesn't mean that, you know, he doesn't deserve some news about loved ones. So I said, okay, fine. Do you want me to check on your wife or your kids? He goes, oh, no. No, what I want you to check on is see how my plumbing supply shop is doing. Because I left it in the care of this guy who was working with me. And I don't know, I don't have a lot of faith in his ability to run the shop. I looked at him in disbelief. I said, Mike, you are a piece of work. You know that? I don't care about your damn shop. I said, I hope it burns down. Now, goodbye. And with that, I disappeared and I appeared in front of the teacher. Now, he had been observing this whole thing, so he knew exactly what happened. He goes, I see you had some problems with that last confrontation. I said, yeah, you might say that. He said, why couldn't you, find it in yourself to forgive him? I said, how can I forgive him? How can I give him the gift of my forgiveness if he's not sorry and if he doesn't want to accept it and doesn't see a need to accept it? If he's not sorry, if he's not willing to make amends, if he's not willing to accept this gift, why should I give it to him? Well, the teacher smiled a little bit, and he said, well, there was a teacher a few thousand years ago, written about in your Christian Bible, who said that you should love your enemies and even those that do evil to you. I say, yes, I'm familiar with that philosophy, and I'm sure that guy was a great guy, but he and I happen to disagree on this particular point. He said, well, okay, it's that's up to you, and that's your decision, and I'll respect that. I said, oh, yeah, but there's one other person that I need to forgive. He said, oh, really? I said, yeah, you, for pulling me away from my moon mission. Okay, at that, he just started laughing. He said, okay, you're done. Bye-bye. And then I disappeared, and I woke up in my bed. And then I got out, and at 3 a.m, I was furiously scribbling. You should see my notes here. Luckily, I've gotten better over the years so that when I wake up, I can actually read them. I remember when I first started doing this as a kid years ago, I'd wake up and then the next morning I would take a look at my notes and they looked like ancient Hebrew. I had no idea what I wrote. So that was the experience. And if it was something that you liked or you thought was interesting, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. If you have subscribed, why don't you hit the bell button? And once again, if you want to help us out on Patreon, there'll be a link in the description. As always, I'm Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.